conducting this event. Colleagues, friends, clinical partners, especially those from out of town, I want to thank all of you for being here today to celebrate clinical education and share in this conference. One of the things that I enjoy most about my work is I get an opportunity to come to conferences like this and to provide a welcome and also meet with people. And it's the time of the year where we do this. A couple of weeks ago we had a nursing conference and I had a chance to come and give a welcome. And the night before I was at a major alumni event and I had a chance to provide a welcome at that event. And it was at that event that something happened that I wanted to share with you today. At that event, it was filled with alumni, class of 1960, class of 1965, class of 1970. The room, the Great Hall at the university was filled with people. And I had a chance to go up and provide my welcome, and then there was a little gathering after. And I had a number of people come up to me, and they were looking at me really in a strange way. They were looking sort of in this area, and they said, a couple of them said, "Well, you look really good." And I thought, well, that feels great. Maybe it's the end of the term, maybe the ink is just dry on a $10 million gift to our faculty, maybe the summer's coming up, maybe they like my suit, they seem to like my tie. And it was only when I got home that I realized how it all added up and I connected the dots. My wife is very supportive of everything I do, but I was telling her this story and she said, "Well, have you looked at your name tag?" And I looked at my name tag and it read, Jim Weiss, Dean, Faculty of Health Sciences, class of 46. I look pretty good for 84, I suppose. So whenever I come to an event like this, the first thing I do is I look at the name tag. So, again, welcome to London, welcome to the Lamplighter, welcome to Celebrating Clinical Education and this conference. This conference is appropriately titled because we do want to celebrate clinical education. We want to thank our clinical partners for the role that they play, the very significant role in preparing not only students from health sciences at Western and Fanshawe, but other Ontario colleges and universities. An education that is honed and tempered by real-world experiences is indeed an education that is valuable, and you play such an important role in preparing our students, and we cannot thank you enough. It is one of the reasons why we are so supportive of this conference and have been since the time it started. And on behalf of my colleagues in the Faculty of Health Sciences, let me thank you most sincerely for being here, but also for the contributions you make in helping our students. The faculty and the Clinical Education Committee is very proud to host this conference. As Sue mentioned, the members of the planning committee have worked very hard at organizing this event, as they do each and every year. This committee meets in a boardroom that is just outside of my office, so I know how many times they meet, I know the hours that they invest, and Sue, to you and your colleagues, I want to thank you very much for the efforts that you've put into this. When I look at the registration list, I see great diversity. I see members from London and the surrounding community. I see people from outside the city. Brantford and Windsor were a couple of areas that stuck out, but again, they stand in for people from all over this area. I see diversity in the disciplines that are represented as well. And it pleases me a great deal to see so many people from our university and from Fanshawe College here as well, from this region, to support this event. Had a chance to look at your program, and it looks very exciting. The opportunity to explore pertinent topics and engage in meaningful dialogue is always a valuable experience at a conference, and looking at your program, you're going to have that opportunity today. I'm very impressed with the people who are involved in delivering the sessions and participating in the day's events. So let me once again offer my warm welcome to all delegates, and thank and congratulate the conference organizers who have worked so hard to put this together. Of special note, the co-chairs that carry the lion's share of the work. You've met Sue, and Sue, thanks for all of your help, and Anne McPhail, the co-chair, and those who have been involved, thank you. It's due to your extraordinary efforts and amazing leadership that we were able to put this event on and do it with the class and dignity that I know delegates today will see. I want you to enjoy your day. I'm personally proud to be with you today for a little bit. I have to run back to the university, unfortunately, but I know that it will be a great day for you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do in helping us and helping prepare the next generation of students and colleagues, professionals in health sciences. Thank you.
We will proceed to the keynote address prepared by Lianne Collins. Lianne is a citywide organizational development consultant, and she's involved in the clinical restructuring at the London Health Science Centre and St. Joe's Healthcare here in London. And as many of you know, here in London, really change is the agenda, and that is what Lianne is involved in, and any kind of change is significant in the outcome, and the outcome that will have an effect on patients, on their families, and on the people who live in this community and this region. She is currently working as a change specialist and a leadership coach, dealing with administrators, with physician leaders, and interprofessional teams to enhance their change capability, to integrate organizational culture, and to define clinical processes and practices. And cornerstone to that kind of readiness work is a strategy for educational development that is designed to build emotional intelligence skills in these administrative leaders, in these physicians, and in these interprofessional teams. In the School of Communication Sciences and Disorders, we've been incorporating emotional intelligence into the training of our students. So trying to develop an awareness in our early clinicians as a tool to encourage them to examine their responses and how they react in certain situations, to explore where those emotional responses and where those reactions might have come from, or where they may have stemmed from, and to explore and to think about how they can use that information to perhaps change or alter how they're going to respond or react in future. And ultimately, we're hoping that having this kind of knowledge and this kind of awareness and this kind of experience is going to lead them to reflect on how they interact with you when they're involved in clinical education experiences, how they're going to respond and interact with their patients, and how they're going to respond and interact with with the families and the significant others in their client populations. We've had an extremely positive response from our students in this regard. They always wish and comment that wish that they'd received it earlier, but we're giving it to them in the first term almost. So we can't give it to them any earlier, but they really see the benefit to having this both personally and clinically. So we wanted to take this opportunity to share this kind of information with you as well. Lianne is also the co-owner of Inner Edge Consulting Services with her colleague Rebecca Parks. And there they partner with executives and teams committed to achieving personal and organizational success and cultivating emotional intelligence. So I will let Lianne Collins take it from here. So please join me in welcoming Lianne.
To be here. When Sue first invited me to be part of your celebration, and I heard the date, May 23rd, and I realized it was a Friday, and I don't usually work Fridays, and I had just moved into my home at the beach, and I was anticipating a very, very sunny day. I thought, I'm not sure. And then she built the case of my presentation. She understood that part of the principle that I work with, that when I'm selecting things that I'm going to pay attention to or where I'm going to invest my energy and where I'm really drawn, the principle behind it all is if it doesn't matter at point of care, it doesn't matter. And when she described the energy, the enthusiasm, the commitment of this group and what they would come together to do today, that sold it for me. So I'm very delighted to be here. I'm also hoping that I can build a case for how emotional intelligence is the practice edge for 21st century healthcare. I want you to pay attention to my description of what's real in healthcare today and find out if it resonates with your experience. And I'm open to any of your feedback. This is what I know is true. A revolution in scientific and medical knowledge and technology that's transforming the way healthcare is delivered. So best practice in all fields and disciplines is at best a moving target, and providers and educators and students are in a continuous learning mode. The expectations and requirements for patients and families are ever expanding. I know the people in this room who are serving in community services and in ambulatory care services have a focus on health promotion and illness prevention. But based on the requirements in the community, you're engaged in working with complex diagnostic assessment protocols, and you're implementing complicated treatment plans, more complicated, more acute than you've ever had to do before. Those of you who are working in hospitals are working with patients who are sicker. Their wait times are longer, their length of stay is shorter, and the opportunity to converse with, reassure, and educate people about their experience of care is more limited than ever before. The system's issues have some of the patients being served in ambulance bays, in corridors, and in crowded wards. And the patients and families haven't changed. They come to us with high levels of vulnerability, anger, fear, disappointment, hope. So we've streamlined many of the technical aspects of care, but we can't streamline emotions out of the care experience. Our administrators, our providers are operating in a new climate that of cost containment and fiscal constraint. We have to operate within balanced budgets. We're rationalizing our services, and the way we access our funding is when we meet our performance targets, and they're no longer just clinical outcomes, they're financial outcomes. It's a new reality. We're operating in an environment of not enough resources, and the most powerful resources are our human resources, and there are shortages in physicians, there are shortages in nursing, there are shortages in every aspect and field that's represented here. And there's a competition for talent, a brain drain that's not only local, it's provincial, it's national, and it's international. So the need for competitive, creative, and effective recruitment and retention strategies are paramount. Partnerships are a reality. Joint ventures, alliances are a reality. We recognize that there's partnerships between our academic environments and our practice setting. Partnerships between community hospitals and teaching hospitals. Partnerships between public sector and private sector. And alliances with organizations that foster and support employee relationships like unions. Some of these partnerships are friendly. Some of them are antagonistic. All of them are necessary to navigate the landscape. The interprofessional team is the model of care delivery. Interprofessional teams, they operate interpersonally. They operate interdependently. They share responsibilities for clinical decisions, clinical outcomes, and they're very diverse. Professional differences, age differences, gender differences, value differences, cultural differences, conflicts are inevitable. So the reality that I know for healthcare is that it is an environment where the rate and pace of change, complexity of care delivery, and the multiple and competing demands are unprecedented and they're relentless. As Sue described in her opening remarks, you're preparing people to practice in this healthcare reality. Does this fit the picture that you're working in? Are there additional challenges that would be important to remark on this morning? We welcome that. Things that keep you up at night? Hopefully there'll be an opportunity as we proceed for that kind of exchange of ideas because the enrichment is in the networking and the information exchange there. The first comment that I would like to make is that even seasoned practitioners need an additional skill set to navigate this high change, high demand environment. I believe that skill set is found in the scientific construct of emotional intelligence. Dan Goleman, who's one of the thought leaders in this emerging field, identifies emotional intelligence as the ability to recognize and understand your emotions and other people's. And from that awareness, the ability to manage yourself and to be effective in relationships. So I want to just ensure that we all share the same notion of what EI is and what it isn't. Because there's widespread belief about EI that I hopefully can shake the paradigms around. Emotional intelligence is not just about care and compassion, although they can go hand in hand. Emotional intelligence is not just about being nice. Because a lot of times what's effective in a given moment is the ability to be clear, tough, direct, and deliver a tough message. Emotional intelligence is not just about feeling your feelings fully. The clicking that I just did unintentionally, I can't go back, so I'm just gonna keep speaking about the definition of emotional intelligence. I clicked that by mistake. So it's not just about feeling your feelings fully, because many times, in order to be effective, we have to manage our feelings, we have to regulate our feelings, so that we can tune in to what's going on around us and make the best choice and take action that's constructive and effective. Emotional intelligence often requires something that is beyond those tender moments or touchy-feely scenarios. It really is most requisite when we're delivering performance feedback and managing what we need to see in place and what we don't. When we're asking for help, when we're setting limits and saying no, and we're working through conflicts and differences. So I want you to think of emotional intelligence today as the intersection of emotion and reason that leads to effective action. A lot of the early work around emotional intelligence came from theorists who defined practical intelligence and personal intelligence. And most recently, people operating within the field, whether they're social scientists or clinical psychologists, what they're emphasizing is the pursuit of a better way of determining what smart looks like. And when IQ and personality don't create the full picture, where they've gone is looking for what is that secret or what is that piece of intelligence that really contributes to personal and professional success. I'm sure all of you know people who have a tremendously high IQ or a significant cognitive skill set who just can't seem to make it in the workplace. People come to mind? Well, that's part of what piqued the curiosity of the social scientist, and that really is a body of research that is relevant in the workplace today. We've learned an awful lot about why some people are more successful than others. We've learned from these researchers why some people assume positions of leadership. And we've learned a lot about why some people stay resilient, even in the face of adversity. And that research has mattered in terms of who we hire, who we promote, who we choose to work with. So, performance in the workplace, criteria has changed. Technical expertise, raw intelligence, it isn't enough anymore. In order to be successful, it's really important to be able to demonstrate human talents and abilities, that personal and interpersonal skill sets that allow you to be effective in any given moment. So, just checking in. I want everyone to pause for a moment and tune in to what has heart and meaning for you in your profession. And get a hold of what you aspire to. Show of hands, please. How many in this room aspire to be average? How many of you aspire to be exceptional, a star performer? Okay. Dan Goleman has helped popularize and legitimize emotional intelligence. He's also managed to make an awful lot of money around it. But what he's managed to do is to link the competencies of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, and link them to performance data. And he's been able to differentiate in fields, roles, and functions of all kinds what differentiates average performance from star performance. Who doesn't want to know that? And what he found to be true is that in jobs of any kind, 2/3 of the differentiator relates to emotional competence. In complex jobs like medicine, law, teaching, and leadership, it matters even more. We know EI matters in the workplace. That doesn't mean that cognitive abilities and technical know-how are irrelevant. Those are entry level. Those are the threshold skills that get you in the door. Once you're in the job, not how much knowledge you have, but how you use your knowledge is most important. So think about how Goleman defines emotional intelligence in another way. He sees it as emotional and social competence. He sees those skills as interdependent, and he sees them as somewhat hierarchical. Self-awareness. If you have self-awareness, if you know what you're feeling in any given moment, you're able to manage it. If you're managing your feelings, staying calm and effective, your ability to look up and look at is greater. To be empathic, socially aware, and to tune into your environment. And if you can tune in to what other people are feeling, to their experience, you're more likely to be able to act in a way that supports effective relationships. Self-awareness makes self-management possible. Self-management makes empathy and social awareness possible. And those three competencies work together to contribute to effective relationship skills. What we also know is that they contribute to your ability to problem solve, to reach good judgments, and to stay on the course of effective action. We've also learned a great deal about emotional intelligence from cognitive neuroscience. Now, I'm not capable of, and I don't have any intention of doing Anatomy 101, but there are some basic facts around the function and structure of the brain that's really helpful in understanding emotional intelligence. So we've learned a lot about how emotions and cognitions work together. We've learned how the emotional part, the social part, and the cognitive part of the brain contribute to optimal action. And we've also learned what happens when they're out of sync. And the learning relates to the seat of emotion, the limbic system. And the critical component of the limbic system is the amygdala. So, everything we take in from the world around us comes through our five senses. Sight, sound, touch, hearing, smell. Everything, all those pieces of information travel from cell to cell in our body as electrical signals, and they all enter the brain through the brain stem at the back. Those signals have to travel across the brain to the front, the prefrontal cortex, before you have a logical, rational, reasoning thought or interpretation. And what happens in between is the piece that relates to emotional intelligence. Every one of those electrical currents has to travel through the limbic system, the oldest part of the brain. Primal experience is the feeling experience. The seat of emotional intelligence is the neural pathways between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. There's a physical source of emotional intelligence. There's a conversation going on at the best of times between our feelings and our thoughts. But it's important to know that we're all emotionally hardwired, even though emotions are often off our radar screen. So what happens as those electrical currents travel through the limbic system is that they pick up information. So emotions are not random, and they're not chaotic, they're information. And they're information about what's significant and important to us in our internal and external world. And each of us contains different information there, different imprint. So what's in the seat of emotion? Well, our survival response, our fight, flight, or freeze response. Whenever we feel threatened or thwarted in any given moment, it's hooked. What feels threatening, what feels dangerous, what feels unsafe will be different for everybody, and it's really important that you have a sense of what is going to trigger your survival response. What else is there? Well, all your emotionally charged memories. Everybody in this room has emotionally charged memories from their early childhood experience. Usually the imprinting happens before the age of 12. Now in a room this size, I bet the range of our early life experience is very great. From the range of disappointing and unhappy to happy and fulfilling. But everybody who goes through childhood, which is a tough experience, as experiences when our needs aren't met. So we all have memories of when our needs for love and belonging were met. We also have memories of when we were excluded, felt disconnected, or unloved. Our needs to maintain our self-esteem. We all have experiences where we remember being proud and confident. If you're human, I'm sure you also have memories, even if they're off your radar screen, of when you were embarrassed or even humiliated. Emotionally charged memories. All of us have experiences where we have learned and achieved and accomplished, and we carry those memories. We also have memories of when we made mistakes or failed or just didn't feel like we were good enough. All of us have memories where we were in control and in charge and self-directed and autonomous and feel that mastery. And there are times when we felt influenced, controlled, or contained. Those memories are there. Anytime we experience something in our environment that's emotionally familiar, and do any of those scenarios sound familiar? We're hooked. And when we're hooked, that floodgates, the neural floodgates open, and we experience an intense emotional reaction. What else is in the amygdala stored there? Our socialization or our conditioning. Those are our shoulds and our shouldn'ts. Our rights and our wrongs, our goods and our bads. All of us have been conditioned to respond to the environment in certain ways. And we're conditioned by the people who are most influential in our lives. Our parents, our older siblings, our caregivers, our early teachers. Those imprints are laid down early in life, some of them pre-verbal, and they're powerful and they're potent. Cultivating emotional intelligence, developing the ability to stay effective at any given moment, no matter how adverse, requires uncovering and discovering what's in the emotional center of your brain. Surfacing it and examining it so you can manage it. The emotional center of the brain will commandeer you, will drive you, will influence your thoughts and actions if it operates outside of your awareness. So today, the opportunity that we have planned is not just to do the drive-by EI theory, but to create an opportunity for you to engage in some of the self-awareness, self-management development that will matter in your job. So, key messages. The emotional center of the brain has memories and imprints that are learned. They're not innate. We're not talking about personality here. We're talking about what we've acquired through our life experience that continues to have potency and influence for us. What can be learned, can be examined and unlearned if you choose to change your behavior. And that's the good news piece. Why this is so important for people who are in the roles of the influencing roles that you're in is because emotions are contagious. The emotional part of our brain is an open loop system. It's dependent on other people for its reaction. So our amygdala is continuously working and it's continuously appraising. It's determining what's safe and okay to approach and what I have to avoid and step back from. It's continually operating as an appraisal system. Emotions are contagious. How many of you have entered a room and you're feeling good and you're feeling optimistic and you're feeling highly energized? You walk into a room and there's a heavy layer of negativity. And you feel yourself start to slip and your energy starts to decline and you don't even know why you got out of bed that morning. Brain science tells us it takes about 15 minutes to pick up a bad mood from somebody else. Now think about all the time you spend with people in the workplace. Think about the emotional labor that it takes to stay optimistic and enthusiastic and constructive. It's really important to know how we respond emotionally to other people. And that's taking care of ourselves. Why it's so important for you to be aware of the reality of emotional contagion, to to understand and appreciate how moods travel, how physiologies mingle and influence each other, is because it's the moods and emotions of the leader that are the most potent and powerful. And by virtue of your role in a learning environment, in a practice situation, you bring leadership. People look to the leader to set the emotional tone. People look to the leader to listen for what's okay or not okay. When somebody holds power or authority or influence within your realm of work, people will look to you for your emotional reality. And a lot of times people will say, well, every time I come into the workplace, I'm smiling and I'm saying the right thing. And even when I deliver feedback, my facial expression is very positive. In reality, you can't fake your emotions. And your amygdala is powerful enough to read the emotional reality of other people, genuinely, authentically. And guess what? They can read yours. So, what you're not aware of in terms of your emotional reality, what stays off your radar screen will be read by the people around you. Anybody have the experience of you're not even aware that you're angry or upset and somebody says, what's wrong with you? And you think, okay, what kind of video is that? In fact, the primal part of our brain picks up and intuits and knows long before the rational and reasoning part of the brain. Big part of cultivating the I is cultivating the awareness of to know what we're feeling in any given moment so we can manage it before we go into that meeting, before we go into the interaction with the student, with the patient, with the family, before we pick the fight. It's really important to have a clear sense of our emotional reality. Okay. I said that in our planning, Sue and I had wanted to create an emotional learning experience for you. Here's what's important to know about emotional learning. It looks a lot different than cognitive learning. So, cognitive learning, you take in information, you organize it according to the buckets that you analyze information in. All of us have our own buckets, and you make sense of it. We add to and enrich the knowledge that we have. Cognitive learning is designed to meet the needs of the prefrontal cortex and the executive center of the brain. Emotional learning is designed to meet the needs of the emotional center of the brain. It's older, and it's a slow learner. And what it requires is vivid experiences, experiential activities, and insight-generating opportunities. Emotional intelligence is built by getting outside of your comfort zone. So we're not going to be focusing on things that are easy to focus on, like what we do really well and what we're comfortable doing. Emotional intelligence development focuses on you, not out there. So the first part of getting outside of your comfort zone is moving to a closer focus on yourself. And what you're focusing on is your blind spots and your defenses. Things that are off your radar screen that are getting in your way that you don't even know about. Your interpersonal mistakes, some of your emotional challenges. The reason we keep it off our radar screen is because there's a sting attached to it. The sting is being outside your comfort zone. I'm hoping that we're going to do the learning in a way that has some aha moments rather than some ouch moments, and I think that will happen for most people. But if you're inside your comfort zone as we're moving through the rest of the morning, I'm going to encourage you to take a step forward, to stretch yourself, to move to a deeper level of personal awareness, looking at places that are uncomfortable, because that will help you in your journey to emotional intelligence. What's required is a very clear process. It's a very messy process. What's required is to move from a place of being unconsciously unskilled. If you knew about it, you would have changed it, to consciously unskilled. And to tune into the patterns of thoughts and feelings and behaviors that we've acquired over a lifetime. They're deeply ingrained patterns. They feel really comfortable and familiar and so automatic. They're just who we are. And the process is really designed to separate the patterns from who you really are. Now, the reason why we're focusing on those patterns is because under moments of stress and when we're emotionally charged or when we don't know what to do, we do what we've always done and we default to those neural pathways and patterns of behavior that are well-worn, well-practiced over our lifetime. Once we have them in our awareness, we can examine them and choose to do things differently. And that's the kind of opportunity that I'd like to create for you this morning. Before I do that, what I'd like to check in is just take a couple moments in your tables. And for some of you, the concepts related to EI, emotional intelligence, won't be new. Some of the ideas that I presented may be different. But at your tables, just take a couple of minutes and consider what ideas and concepts related to EI, the theory, the definition, how it's developed, or how it matters, resonate with you from your experience as a clinical educator. And what ideas and concepts conflict with your current organizational, team, or practice reality. That's where you get to push back. Take 5 minutes. Choose to be a spokesperson for your table and share your insights. Put up your hand and let other people with the microphone. Who'd like to go first?
So I'm nursing, and this is the nursing table. And we were thinking about how we have the students do journals, reflective practice reviews, and we started first year. And we were sort of having a discussion about, well, is it really, is there a certain maturational process associated with emotional intelligence? And we are expecting, these 17, 18-year-old students to come in and try to give us, we're always trying to push for some meats, go deeper and reflect deeper. And really, is that realistic? And maybe the way that we present being able to be reflective needs to have more of a process. So maybe it needs to start with examining emotional intelligence and trying to build that self-awareness.
In my own practice of cultivating EI in individuals and coaching and development, reflective practice is a very big part of it. So whether it's through personal reflections, that's a daily practice, ongoing journaling, but all of those practices that are oriented to developing hindsight is critically important. Our learning is, if you start with the underlying emotional reality beneath the experience, it helps people to make sense of it. So that's a really good insight. Thank you. Other insights? Yeah?
At our table, we were talking about gut feelings and those first initial feelings that you get in different situations. And with relationship to clinical education, we were talking about working with students who perhaps aren't performing as well as we believe they should be. But we hate to make their lives difficult. We hate to ruin their lives by telling them you're not up to snuff. You might fail this place, so we ignore those gut feelings. So we talked about the fact that we pay attention to our gut feelings in everything, including clinical education.
Thank you. And that capacity to use our feelings wisely, sometimes we feel it and we push it away, repress it, suppress it, and think, oh no, rationally, I'm sure this is enough. And again, it isn't an either or, is how do we ensure that there is that we use our emotions to guide our thoughts and our choice of actions in a way that's constructive and truly intelligent. And those intuitive, those primal feelings, those things that feel almost like instinct are powerful and potent for a reason. Any other comments or insights that people would like to share? Okay.
Just to build on that comment about when you're having a student doing really well, our table spoke of oftentimes we will be assigned a student who's doing a remedial placement and how you tend to either lower your expectations or have a bias already about that student because you know it is a remedial placement. And it's often hard for the student to even overcome that and try and move on from that experience, because if it's known within their environment, oh, well, there's the student that failed, it can create a hard challenge for them to overcome, and then for you to overcome even as a clinical instructor. So it's almost not having that knowledge known to you that they were on a remedial placement.
Thank you. Interesting how important it is. And of course, we're going to have emotional reactions to circumstances, situations, and people. And some of those reactions will be carrying from earlier experiences of things that don't have anything to do either with the present moment or with that person. And it's funny in an education experience how the notion of remedial, and I think you just gave me a little bit of an ouch. We describe in our work, remedial EI is when you're called in to deal with people who are in a conflict or mediate and they can't play in the sandbox together, they can't get along. So we're not dealing with the leaders who are motivated or people who are proactive. We're dealing with people who are forced or mandated to be part of EI development. And we refer to that as remedial, and I wonder how much I'm carrying in about my reluctance and my resentment and my irritation that will probably show up and color those experiences. Great insight. Thank you. Anything else before we move into our own learning experience? Okay. One of our colleagues this morning talked about, and I have to find my clicker, talked about journaling as a practice where we like to start with EI development. He's giving you a model and a shared learning experience that we hope will foster insight. I talked about Dan Goleman, who was a thought leader in some of his posts and some of his research. Another leader in the field was Roland Glaser. And what he did was he took all of the emotional intelligence competencies that reflected those human talents and abilities of staying effective and resilient. And he said, what we matter most is that point of interaction and how it is that we influence the people around us. Everything we get done in life is rarely done alone. It's done in cooperation, collaboration, or through other people. And so he created a model for assessment and a framework for action that he refers to as the assertiveness model. And he divides influencing styles into 4 categories that may sound familiar: assertiveness, openly aggressive, concealed aggressive, and passive. And how he differentiates between the styles is through openness and directness and consideration for others. And the style that represents emotionally intelligent behavior in Glaser's model is the assertive style. Clear, open, and direct. I'm able to express my thoughts and my feelings so that you would understand them. But I'm able to do it in a way that's respectful and demonstrates consideration for who you are and what you need. And all of us are a blend of those particular styles. By virtue of the roles that you're in and the level of success you've achieved in your life, I'm going to presume that most of the time you operate from a certain place. But nobody can get there and stay there all the time, because we're dealing with pressures, demands, and influences that pull us into our emotional patterns of thoughts and behaviors. Those impulses can be strong. We can be too tired to withstand them. When we don't know what to do, we do what we've always done. There are pulls and impulses and pressures that shift us to non-assertive places. This morning's experience is designed to help you determine where you're likely to go when you're not assertive. Okay, we're going to do it through scenario-based learning. And so I've created some scenarios that I hope are relevant to you based on your practice. But I want to give you an example of what scenario-based learning is. I'm going to invite you to insert yourself into a specific situation. To imagine that it was happening for you right then and there, to feel the feelings and tune in to what you would likely say or do. Even if you can control it, it's important to tune in to what your tendencies are or what you want to do if no one was looking. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. You're in a meeting. You're doing really well. You're at your best. Suddenly, the person across the room stands up and in a very arrogant, self-righteous way puts down your ideas and your suggestions. And at the end, makes a little jab at you. Where are you going to go? Are you able to stay assertive, effective?